Welcome to my running solo and GM-less games video. My name is Roosevelt Cooper from Golden Acacia Gaming. In this video, I'm going to be demonstrating to you some actual examples of how you can use the meaning tables in the Mythic Game Master Emulator 2nd edition to identify what happens in your adventure without having to ask a fate question. Now, I previously did another video where I explained the concept of meaning tables. So if you haven't watched that video, I would encourage you to watch that video first. I put a link to that video in the description, so you can click on that link and watch that video first if you're not familiar with the concept of meaning tables and how to use them when you're playing your favorite tabletop role-playing game, solo or GM-less, without necessarily having a game master. In this particular video, I just want to delve more deep into meaning tables and give you some actual examples of how you can use the meaning tables when playing the tabletop role-playing game of your choice. Now, in the random events chapter of the Mythic Game Master Emulator, there are 5 different meaning tables that are provided to you that you can use for different circumstances that you may encounter when playing a tabletop role-playing game. There is an actions table, a descriptions table, a location elements table, a character elements table, and an object elements table. So one question you might have is, when do you use which table for what? You can pretty much use any table you want for any reason that you feel that you want to. You don't necessarily have to use the actions table for something involving the action. You could pick another table if you want to. However, I want to give you some examples of when you might choose to use each table. All right, so let's say you're playing a fantasy role-playing game like Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder or Daggerheart, and you're in a situation where you've captured a cultist and you're looking to interrogate them and you want to find out what happens. This is an example where you can roll on the actions meaning table to figure out what happens. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now just to demonstrate to you. So I'm going to roll on the actions meaning table. First roll is a 32. 32 is deposit. Second row, 41. 41 is escape. Deposit, escape. So what I am going to interpret that to mean is the cultist is going to offer you some type of bribe if you will allow the cultist to escape. So maybe it might be some type of ring of power, or maybe it might be some type of magic item. But the cultist is going to basically offer you something in exchange for allowing him to escape. So that's an example of how you can use the actions meaning table. Let's try the descriptions table. So you're investigating a mysterious statue in the woods. And let's see what the statue looks like. To see what the statue looks like or what it is, we can roll on the descriptions meaning table. So let's go ahead and do that now. First row, 78. 78 is passively. Second row, 97. Very. So very passively. So I interpret that as it's an old statue of a elderly man who is in a thinking pose. So it's an old statue of an elderly man who is in a thinking pose. So all you're doing is just rolling, and then you're picking whatever's the first thing that comes to your mind based upon the roll. Now, what is an example where you might want to roll on the location elements table? So let's say you're exploring a hidden chamber behind a waterfall, and you're going to roll on the location elements table to see what's in the chamber. So we're going to go ahead and roll now. First roll is 90. 90 is tall. Second row, 84. 84 is small. Tall, small. So what I interpret that as, this is a chamber that was designed for a giant. So the chamber is 70 feet high, which is the tall. And then because it's designed for a giant and you're not a giant, you feel very small in it. So that's just another example. Again, just coming up with the first thing that comes to your mind. What about the character elements table? Here's an example of when you might want to use that. You meet a mysterious traveler on the road, and you want to see who this traveler is. So we can roll on the character elements table to find out. Gonna go ahead and do that now. First row, 20. 20 is curious. Second row, 47. Harmful. Curious, harmful. So I'm going to say the traveler is a young adventurer who is going to try to rob you. And now you got the roll for initiative and fight. So that's an example of how you can use the character elements table. Last but not least, you have the object elements table. What's an example of where you can use that? Maybe you might loot a treasure chest found deep in an ancient room, and you want to find out what's up with the chest. So we're going to go ahead and roll on the object elements table. First row, 91. 91 is unexpected. Second row, 14. 14 is consumable. So I'm going to say unexpected means that the treasure chest is trapped. So if you did not search for traps, you're going to trigger the trap. But then for the consumable, inside the treasure chest, you find 5 potions of healing. So that's an example of how you can use the object elements table. So those are some examples of how you can use each of the meaning tables in the Mythic Game Master Emulator system. So go ahead and try it out and let me know what your experiences are and how you've been able to use these meaning tables when you're playing your game. Take care.